Hello, everyone. So, as Paul explained, my take today on kind of the future in the media mix, I have a little bit of a take. One, because in my role at Facebook, I am responsible for proving and working on return on investment and actually working with advertisers to actually prove that Facebook has an impact. And so, in talking about the future of the media mix with all those kind of headwinds that also were mentioned, it's fundamental for, I think, Facebook to think about kind of proving its worth and figuring out, in conjunction with our customers, how we work with other channels. So so that's what I do at Facebook. If I take a look at my my mission and what I do, it's essentially to work with the global, the UK, the Nordics business to actually transform measurement, to work with measurement with clients through the application of better data and science. So I didn't always work in advertising. Before I worked in advertising, I worked for a company that was called Voter News Service. Voter News Service, if that rings familiar to any of you, was a company that was owned by ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Associated Press, and Fox. It's distinguished only in memory because if you remember back to the 2000 election, there was a call made for then Vice President Gore, and the reason that it was made was due to some fundamental flaws in the actual models, the prediction models that worked correctly for every single election from 1968 up until that point. There may be a handful, 5 or so gubernatorial or senatorial races that were called incorrectly. And so if I think back to that time, I'm not foolhardy enough to kind of mention that, I've worked in election polling and I work at Facebook and metrics, so you should undoubtedly have my trust. So I'm not saying it for credibility because neither of those two hold a lot of weight. But the reason that I mention it is that I think I learned a lot from the experience and how it applies to changes in the ecosystem today. So for the past 10 years, we've heard about it ad nauseum, how things are changing, how there's challenges in measuring from TV to Facebook across channel. A lot of that is simply because of the pace of change, and the measurement systems have not kept up with the ecosystem. So taking kind of a look at that and kind of my previous experience, if you take a look at the 2000 election, one of the things that went wrong was that voting had changed. People were voting by absentee ballot, they were voting by different methods. And so in Florida, for example, where the missed call started, if you have a primarily 25%, at the time 27% absentee vote that's primarily Republican, and you're missing it, you're going to call the wrong winner. So if I take a look at the state of play in measurement today, I see a lot of similarities. There's challenges, I think, to mobile measurement. Cookies don't work on mobile across all systems. That's one big challenge. So you don't know, essentially, if your channel is voting Democrat or voting Republican. Another big challenge is, at least in the election, a vote cast in a ballot or a vote cast by absentee was still a vote. We still have competing metrics. Is it CPA we should be paying attention to? Is it click-through rate? So, as I mentioned, I've worked at Facebook for about 8 years, and when we started there, like any company that was pre-IPO, there was a lot of pressure to do sales support measurement, right? We had to grow. People were concerned about the S1 filing, and we took a while to kind of take a look and to see, okay, we could use existing measurement systems to kind of port over into something that would maybe advance our commercial interests, or we could take a step back and take a look at how measurement systems work, how the ecosystem, how the Nielsen, Miller-Brown, how Econometrics was working, to figure out how do we actually learn if our products, if our DR products, if we actually work. And I think that is kind of the path that I'm going to be telling you about. So while I think measurement methods have changed, one of the good news, and has need to be tested, one of the good pieces of information is that some of the basic principles, and I know this has been mentioned today, is that there's some basic principles that were the same previously as they are in digital. And I think about Les Binet and Peter Field's research that they've done on marketing effectiveness in the digital era, and How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp. A lot of these principles, like if you market to the largest audience, or you maximize your reach, you're going to have better luck at acquisition. A lot of those same principles were for us to test using different methods on Facebook. So if I think about also kind of like Byron Sharp, still the same things that we wanted to, I think, know in principle were creative assets. What happens when you have a variety of creative assets to use? But the trouble at the time was, how are we going to test these fundamental things on Facebook? So one of the ways, and this isn't unique to Facebook, I think that we chose to test our assumptions out, to test previous traditional assumptions to see if they worked on the platform, is by using control and exposed methodology. Now, the control and exposed methodology and incrementality is nothing new. Direct mail, there's methods that have used this. A/B testing have existed for a long time, but what I think is different and what I think digital channels are challenged with is potentially, if you do it the wrong way, there's huge biases. Potentially if you take a look at Facebook as a system that actually has an auction system that optimizes and delivers content to what that person sees. So we leverage what we know about them, use machine learning to deliver what we feel is the most relevant content. If you do simplistic control and exposed testing without taking a look at, do people have an equivalent probability of logging in on that day? Do they have an equivalent probability, if they're in control group, to be chosen by the election or chosen by the auction? You're going to have biases in the work you do. So this was primarily the tool that we chose to kind of see how things work. Now, I mentioned it's not unique to us. Last week, there was a white paper that was released that took a look at 4 companies and what they were doing with incrementality. So we looked across eBay, we looked across Booking.com, Airbnb, and Netflix to find out how they were using incrementality and for kind of what purposes. So Airbnb, by talking to Alok Gupta, who's director of their data science over there, one of the primary reasons that, or primary applications that they have for incrementality is to understand ROI, and then secondly, to optimize better on the platform. Netflix uses it to test and to iterate and to find out what features and products are going to actually work on the platform. And so the reason I think that this is transformative is because it takes companies that are in a fast pace of growth, that have a fast growth trajectory, and you get to figure out and rapidly change and evolve based on what your lift test or your conversion test or whatever it is, your creative tests, in order to optimize your product for the best result. So, taking a look at what some common applications for incrementality that we use on the platform. There's a variety of things that I think we want to know, or what our clients want to know when it comes to, how do I do good work on Facebook? And through this testing, as I mentioned, it primarily offers speed, it offers accuracy if you do the control and exposed correctly, and also breadth. So with the same kind of design, you can test placement mix. What should my investment be across Facebook, across Instagram, or potentially our other family of products. Buying test, what's the correct buying mechanism? Should I buy for maximum reach, or should I buy for view? What should I optimize for? Creative quantity, sequencing, these are all things that we can test, come back to the client, say that didn't work, we have to change, iterate, and then deploy a new plan. So one of the biggest things I think that we, and not so much I think these days, but when we first started testing with clients, was taking a look at what is the, what is the correct application for Facebook. We heard a lot from clients. We know you have the ability to target, right? So should I use narrow niche targeting, or should I broaden it out for a higher reach campaign? And this quote by Sean O'Neill encapsulates it pretty well when he says there's an intellectual debate raging in the media world regarding whether reach-oriented targeted communications makes the most sense. And this was big for us because we were seen for a very long time as offering a very, very efficient ability to, to leverage our CRM database and to only target specifics, to specific people. So, testing this, how would we test this on Facebook? One of the common things that we're able to do to kind of test this hypothesis is to say, okay, with more precise, smaller targeting, what is potentially, if you in this case have a 12% lift, what number of people are you going to influence? Or if you expand your reach, and this is consistent with what Byron Sharp thinks, this is consistent with what Les Binet and Peter Field thinks, if you reach a broader audience and have a more reasonable medium lift, is that better overall? Because it actually influences more people but has less lift. So that's one application for testing. Another application is the rate frequency. This is a question that I think a lot of advertisers come to us with because they don't want to saturate, especially digital natives who don't want to overexpose people so that they uninstall apps. What is the rate frequency? And we can start with some baseline assumptions, like potentially it's 1 or 2 per week. And moving from there, you take a look at, and this is again stuff that we knew before, right? We knew that lower frequency, and this holds true across channels, lower frequencies make more sense if you have an established brand, if you have higher market share. When it comes to messaging, if you have low messaging complexity and it's easier to get that point across, if you have an existing campaign message that perhaps has awareness. And then when it comes to media, other media factors, is your campaign during a low season? Is your scheduling continuous? And is the campaign duration over a long period of time? So all those things have held true in the offline world, but the ability to kind of test on the platform allows us to tell advertisers, as this study of I think 300 CPG, primarily well-known brands, kind of shows. So we're able to test at what frequency do you get, diminishing returns. And here we see if at a frequency for ad recall, 1 a week, that gets you 80% of the way there. So 80% of the cumulative impact that you're going to make was with 1 frequency. When it comes to purchase intent, 95% of the impact that you're going to make is through a frequency of 2. So this helps advertisers learn, test, manipulate the design, and actually deploy a better plan. So this competes with existing, I think, methods. You take a look at attribution, whether it's multi-touch or last click, and also econometric modeling. And the beauty of attribution, for example, is it enables you to decide, it enables you to look across channel. The beauty of experiments, it gives you a precise or more precise kind of lift to take a look at what the actual, especially when you're looking across mobile, of which in the earnings call that you alluded to, or that was alluded to before, 89% of our revenue is actually from mobile, so that's a big deal to us. It's one of the only ways that you can actually get the lift across Facebook and across all of the properties. So advertisers are using this in a number of ways. We have some advertisers that are calibrating their econometric modeling with lift figures, and not 1 or 2, but sustained testing over and over again. And the same with so attribution and econometric modeling. And that, I think, in the kind of the paper that I alluded to, one of the main findings that we had when we looked across 580 studies of conversion lift overall was that you get different results if you do things different ways. So last click attribution, especially if it's not picking up cookies, potentially, if you're optimizing for a website purchase, and if you're using incrementality as well to judge, you can potentially have a 48% difference on those attributes. For mobile app install, it can be 33%. So in all, I think we're not done with measurement. I think nobody can say that there is an existing silver bullet for how media should be measured. But I think for this, for kind of digital, one of the truer ways to measure is through control and exposed and incrementality. Thank you.